What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats, as well as the best attachment and class setups for every gun in Modern Warfare. In today's episode, by popular request, we're going to be covering the SIG MCX, or the M13 as it's known in this game. And starting it off with damage, we get a damage profile of 2418, which means this is going to be a 5 to 6 shot kill. This is definitely the lowest damage assault rifle in the game. All of the other assault rifles up close will be killing in 2 to 4 shots, not this gun. It's going to take you 5 shots to kill, even at point blank range. As for headshots, we get a headshot multiplier of 1.5, which gives us a headshot damage profile of 3627. This means that up close in the standard 5-shot kill range, mixing just one headshot with body shots will be reducing the number of shots it takes to kill, whereas at longer ranges you have to land at least 2 headshots mixed in with body shots in order for that to help. It's also worth noting that up close, if you hit 3 headshots in a row, you can get a 3-shot kill, and at a distance, if you hit 4 in a row, you can get a 4-shot kill. Although when we look at the recoil, that's not exactly practical at longer ranges. Moving on to our rate of fire, the M13 has the fastest rate of fire in the assault rifle category at 923 rounds per minute, which is very, very fast. And this means our statistical minimum time to kill, assuming body shots, is going to be 260 milliseconds in the 5-shot kill range and 325 milliseconds in the 6-shot kill range. This time to kill isn't really that great in this game. It's a little bit slower than average, so even though this thing has a super high rate of fire, statistically speaking, it just doesn't quite hold its own against some of the faster killing assault rifles in the game. Now, having said that, the higher your fire rate is, the more forgiving it is when you miss the odd shot or two. So it's not all bad. Just know, if you're in a really competitive environment, this gun just doesn't hold its own against some of the others in the game. Now, I also wanted to show the time to kill potential, assuming one headshot mixed in with body shots, because that's a really practical sort of situation. This will cut our time to kill down to 195 milliseconds, which is now in the competitive range. Now, getting into our range values, as you can see here, we've got a pretty standard damage drop-off range for assault rifles at just over 25 meters. So that'll be its 5-shot kill range, and then beyond that, it will be a 6-shot kill. The lightweight suppressor reduces our damage range by 25%, and the monolithic suppressor increases our damage range by just 7.5%, which is hardly noticeable. As for hardcore, the M13 is always going to be a 2-shot kill to the body in hardcore, although you can get a 1-shot headshot at just over 25 meters in hardcore modes. This brings us to Hipfire, and as you can see here, we've got very standard Hipfire for the assault rifle category on this gun. And when it comes to idle sway, this is also pretty standard for assault rifles. There's a little bit of movement while aiming down sight, but generally this isn't going to have a huge impact on your first shot accuracy. Speaking of accuracy, this is one of the downsides to the M13. While it doesn't kick upwards very high, it does kick very, very strong to the right, and horizontal recoil is always more difficult to deal with than vertical recoil. So I will say this gun definitely doesn't excel in this area. At least you know it always kicks strong to the right, so you can compensate for this to an extent, but just know it's not very good in the recoil department. As for handling, our aim down sight time is pretty solid for an assault rifle at 250 milliseconds. And our sprint out time is standard for assault rifles at 267 milliseconds, with our super sprint out time also being standard at 400 milliseconds. Our magazine capacity is pretty standard at 30 rounds with 60 in reserve, and our reload add time is actually pretty solid at just 1.3 seconds. Now, if you did want to speed that up a little bit, you could use the sleight of hand weapon perk, which will cut that down to 0.9 seconds. Moving on to movement speed, this is pretty standard for the assault rifle category at 94%, and our aim down sight strafe speed is also right around the realm of average for assault rifles at 47.5%. So that covers it for the basic stats for the M13, assuming no attachments, but now I wanted to get into the unique attachments we had for this, and first off, let's cover the barrel attachments. Now, the first barrel we have access to is the Tempest Mini, which is the short barrel, and with this one, you aim down sight about 15% faster, or 2 frames at 60 FPS. And your movement speed is also improved by about 2%. Now, this does come at the cost of bullet velocity, so it is going to be a bit more difficult to hit, especially moving targets at longer ranges. And also, it says that it has a negative impact on your recoil control, so we can have a look here, and as you can see, there's really not much of a noticeable difference to your overall recoil control. If anything, the recoil plot looks a little bit better with the mini barrel, although it is important to keep in mind that the wall tests are never designed to be perfectly accurate tests. It's more so just for finding trends, and I'm not really seeing a trend of the mini barrel making the recoil that much worse on this gun. This brings us into the second barrel, which is the Tempest Cyclone barrel, and with this one, it basically just has an integrated suppressor in it, so you get that sound suppression, and you get an increase to your bullet velocity, but this does come at the cost of your aim down sight speed, and with this, you aim down sight about 12% slower, which is just 1 frame at 60 FPS. Finally, for barrels, we have the Tempest Marksman barrel, and with this one, you get a 33% increase to your damage range, which is quite noticeable. You also get an increase to your bullet velocity and an increase to your recoil control. So let's have a look at the recoil, and as you can see here, definitely you do get a little bit of a tighter recoil spread compared to having no attachments at all. However, these upsides do come at the cost of your aim down sight speed. This is going to be about 20% slower, or 3 frames at 60 FPS, which is very noticeable. And also, your overall movement speed is slowed down by about 3%. And that's it for the barrels. However, there are a few other notable attachments that I wanted to talk about. First off, the extended mag attachments. We have the 50 round extended mag attachment, which says that it reduces your aim down sight speed, but there's no measurable change here whatsoever. You'll still be aiming down sight in right around 250 milliseconds. And it also slightly reduces our movement speed. This is just a 1% reduction, which is hardly noticeable at all. As for our 60 round magazine, once again, even though it says that it affects your aim down sight speed, at 60 FPS at least, there is no measurable change here. Our movement speed though is definitely slowed down a bit more than the 50 round magazine. This attachment will reduce it by about 2.5%, which is starting to get a lot more noticeable. Now, one last notable attachment I really wanted to cover with this gun before getting into the 300 blackout ammunition. This is the skeleton stock. And the reason I wanted to cover this is the skeleton stock can't be used on very many guns, and this has some massive upsides. So first up, we aim down sight about 15% faster, or 2 frames faster at 60 FPS, which is a really nice bonus. But the most important thing here is our base movement speed is increased by 8.5%. This puts you over the 100% movement speed, which means if you have this attachment on the M13, you're moving faster than you can move with anything else that I've tested. You move faster than you can move with a combat knife in your hand. You move faster than you can move with a pistol in your hand. I don't know if this is a bug or something, but I triple checked my testing here. You move incredibly fast with the skeleton stock equipped on the M13. This also applies to our aim down sight strafe speed. We get an 11.5% boost to our aim down sight strafe speed, so you're going to be able to strafe side to side pretty much just as fast as an SMG in this game, which is pretty incredible. And this is why I really wanted to talk about this attachment in this video, because for some reason, this has such a massive power boost over any of the other attachments that you normally see. Just for some context on that, if you're using the no stock attachment, you would think you'd get an even bigger boost to your movement speed, but the boost that you get from no stock is only about half of the boost that you gain from this skeleton stock attachment. So this attachment is definitely special and something you may want to look into when using the M13. So finally, there's one other attachment I want to cover here, and this is the 300 blackout ammunition. And with this, our damage range is increased by 25%, which is a pretty nice boost to your damage range. Also with this, there are no visible tracers, so when you're firing your gun, normally the enemies can see tracers, so they can kind of guess the general direction those are coming from. But with this, there are no visible tracers at all. And also, when you kill enemy players, there will be no skull that appears above them, marking the location of that death for their teammates. Now, these benefits come at the cost of, first off, bullet velocity, which, again, this is going to impact your ability to hit, especially moving targets at longer ranges. You won't really notice it too much up close. And also, this has a negative impact on our recoil control, but once again, when we look at the comparison here, we look at the side-by-side, it doesn't really look any worse, and if anything, it looks slightly better than the base M13, so I wouldn't really worry too much about the recoil reduction from that 300 blackout ammunition. So finally, that's going to cover it for all of the stats of the M13, as well as a bunch of the important attachments to cover. Now let's get into some recommended attachment combos, as well as example classes that you can use. This first setup is one way to run the M13 that effectively turns it into like an SMG that has a slightly slower sprint out time. And this is with the Tempest mini barrel. We've got the skeleton stock on there, so our movement speed and aim down sight speed is going to be great, especially because we also have the stippled grip on there, which helps with aim down sight speed as well as sprint out time. So this thing is incredibly mobile. You actually move faster with this gun than you do with SMGs in this game. Then on top of that, we've got a 50 round magazine because you burn through ammo so quickly with the M13. And we've also got the Merc foregrip. Now, the reason we're using the Merc foregrip is it does help with vertical recoil, but it also helps with hipfire spread a little bit. And since this is designed to be a really close quarters kind of a gun, I just felt like that combination fit really nicely with this. So with this particular attachment combination, I've been finding quite a bit of success with this as long as I'm treating it more like an SMG that has this slower sprint out time. As for an example class setup with that, we got the 1911 as our secondary. You can throw whatever you want on there. That one just comes down to personal preference though, so use whatever you'd like there. We've got EOD because we're going to be aggressive and therefore likely running into a lot of claymores, or if we're playing the objective, lots of nades and stuff. Hardline so we can get our streaks up a little bit faster, and we've also got battle hardened just to help a bit with those stuns and those flashes. For our lethal, we've got a C4, and our tactical is a stim shot. So that's a great, really hyper-aggressive M13 class setup. The next one is a little bit more balanced. This one's designed to be a bit better at longer ranges, while still being quite good up close. With this, we've got the Marksman barrel on it, as well as the GI Mini Reflex. I really like that Mini Reflex sight. And once again, we do have that skeleton stock, because like I showed you guys earlier, this stock just has so many benefits. And I honestly think it's actually bugged at this point. It's just that good. So I'd highly encourage you guys to run it if you have it unlocked. But with this, once again, we are going to be using that stippled grip just to help with our sprint out time a little bit. And we are going to be using the 300 blackout ammunition as well, because when you stack the 300 blackout ammunition with the Marksman barrel, you actually get a 66% increase to your damage range. And this is a massive increase to that 5-shot kill range, and that's going to help quite a bit in those mid-range situations. Taking that into an example class, this one's designed around getting those higher streaks, especially in like ground war, for instance. We've got Scavenger, Kill Chain, Shrapnel combined with those Thermites, which is great for taking tanks out, and we've got a stun grenade for our tactical. This right here is a nice way to run the M13. Just keep in mind though, you will be burning through ammo very quickly, and that's one of the main reasons I threw Scavenger on there. With that 30-round magazine, since we're stuck with the 300 blackout ammunition, you're definitely going to want to make sure you keep topping up your ammo. But with that, that's going to cover it for today's gun guide on the M13. As for my thoughts on this gun, they're kind of mixed. I do consider this gun to be not bad, but also I just don't feel like it really excels in any way. I see a lot of people recommending this as an alternative to the M4, but when I put them side by side, in my opinion, the M13 just doesn't quite compete with the M4. It's not a bad gun in my eyes, it's just not really a great gun. But of course, I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about the M13? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think this gun is actually super underrated and has the potential to be a top tier gun? Or do you think it's generally just kind of like an average assault rifle? Also, if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes of Gun Guides, of course, I will leave a link to the playlist down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.